as we are halfway through the Minnesota legislative session and on this beginning day of the trial for the man accused of killing George Floyd, the Minnesota Senate is taking up the law enforcement operating account. It's the alternative to the SAFE money for mutual aid support for law enforcement among units of government. And the Senate may also be taking up PPP tax conformity. Senator Nick Frentz from Mankato is with the DFL at the Minnesota Senate. And tell me, Senator Frentz, how things have shaped up today regarding both of these issues, the PPP and tax conformity. But let's start with the law enforcement and the funding.
The bill before us proposes to put $20 million towards what the governor called the SAFE account. This is a basic account to try to provide reimbursement for law enforcement expenses across the state when needed. This bill here has some problems with it. In particular, cities and counties have expressed some concern over some definitions of disaster account relief in there. And my hope is that the two sides are going to reach an agreement. Like
Rochester, Mankato, and your constituents are considered greater Minnesota as well. So when we were hearing about the $35 million that the governor wanted to use for security measures, not only for the Derek Chauvin trial, but the other three former officers, that's coming up in August. A lot of the cities in greater Minnesota did take issue with this because they don't want it to be taxpayer funded. Where did you stand with this?
Well, I support the governor's proposal, and I would look at it this way. We stick up for each other in Minnesota. We watch out for each other. Our cities that need help can often find it from their neighbors. A perfect example would be where we had outbreaks of COVID. We put state money into those places immediately to try to help. Worthington is one example. I like this bill in that what it says is wherever across Minnesota, law enforcement help may be needed from another jurisdiction. Picture Byron Police coming to help in Rochester. This will protect the payment of that jurisdiction if they submit a bill. And so I see it as a neighborly way for us to approach this issue regardless of where we live.
Okay, but so much of it centered on these two trials specifically, which is where the opposition then came in. So you can see where that opposition comes from somewhat.
Well, I think what we want to say is we're all in it together. Mm-hmm. So while there may be a trial coming up in Minneapolis that may have some additional security needs, we provide law enforcement across the state. A perfect example is State Patrol travels around trying to help different jurisdictions. National Guard is called out when we have unrest like we had in Austin back in the 80s. And that's the things we do as Minnesotans to keep each other safe. And what we want to do with this bill is try to make it so we all have that. Law enforcement is in support of the funding, I might add.
Let's talk about the governor's emergency peacetime declaration and under it his executive authority. We have talked here at 6:30 with a number of lawmakers over many months since toward the end of last summer when Republicans really started to say, okay, this is enough. And then every month since when it's been voted that the emergency peacetime stays in place. Some Democrats just within the last month or so have been joining Republicans on this. Where do you stand on it? And do you see the governor giving up or losing in any of the House vote or Senate votes, any of his emergency authority?
I think the governor would be happy to negotiate away emergency powers, assuming he can retain the basics, which is the ability to order immediate testing, vaccinations, and then that there be some resolution to the existing emergency orders, for example, the eviction moratorium. I think those things can't simply end with the curtain coming down. We need to figure them out. And I think the legislators are a good group to try to figure out how we move forward.
I sat down with the governor about a month and a half ago and talked to him about this as well. His fear was that by giving up the executive authority, some of the declarations that he's put into place or some of the mandates, let's put it that way, that he's put into place would then go away. And then there would be this infighting among the parties and then things wouldn't get done. Do you see that?
Well, sure. And I love serving in the Senate and I'm a proud Minnesotan, but it's true that the legislature has a little bit of a history of not agreeing.
A little bit.
So one of the, I don't know if KAAL has ever reported on that before, but I've read about it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think Minnesotans have correctly asked is, okay, if the emergency powers end and some of the executive orders are no longer in effect, and then the two parties can't agree, what then? And I would just say, it's just another example of why Minnesotans are actually pretty smart. That is a very legitimate concern, and I think the governor's right to raise that issue. Having said that, hopefully, if the goal of all parties is to get a deal, we could work through that and find a solution. I really think we can.
I hope that it doesn't become so partisan, because the constituents are the ones, the voters are the ones who end up feeling like they're on the losing end of the battle at the end of the day. As always, though, Senator Frentz, I just so much appreciate your time, being able to talk with you while you're in St. Paul. Lots of work that still needs to be done.
Well, I appreciate that, Betsy, and you're exactly right. This is my 5th year in the Senate, and not one constituent has ever said, now remember, go up there and get in a big fight and don't get anything done. And I don't think they're about to start saying it. So we owe the people of Minnesota a little bit of cooperation, a little bit of work across the aisle. And frankly, I think we can get that done this session by the end of May.
You are a kind individual, Senator Frentz. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy.